so that you can't make any noise. And then at the end, we'll take the mutes off. Just as a reminder, you can put any questions or comments that you have down in the public chat on the left, and we will be able to see those and address them throughout the show. So I'm going to be going through some conversation here. Hey, Alex. It's like you said we're live, but I didn't hear you count down.
Oh, sorry about that.
And we're live. Welcome to the Midwest Solar Expo. Today, we are kicking off the expo with the SunCast Morning Show. I'm here with my friend Brian Lynch and Rex Kehoe from LG and Solar.com, and it is our great pleasure to spend some time with you all this morning, get a chance to give you a sense of what the show's all about. Quick show of hands if this is your first time coming into the Virbela platform. You can see a little, there we go. Chris Berta's got it down. Nice, got a few guys that are just coming in here for the first time. Fantastic. Eric Wessoff in the back, good to see you, sir. Welcome to the morning show.
Morning.
Great article yesterday on the SPI conference. So here we are at Midwest Solar Expo. My name again is Nico Johnson. I'm the founder and host of the SunCast podcast, and I'm joined today by the Director of Solar and Storage for LG, Brian Lynch, and Director of Partnerships for Solar.com, Rex Kehoe. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Hey,
thanks, Nico.
Yeah, indeed. This is fun. I'm looking forward to, it's my first, well, technically second since yesterday we did a pre-show, first virtual recording or virtual show. My esteemed colleague, far stage right, my left, Alex Murillo, is going to be awkwardly standing on stage with his avatar because he's recording this and pumping it out to those of you who are tuning in on LinkedIn and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. Grateful for all of you who are watching. Don't be thrown off guard. Here we are inside of a virtual platform called Virbela. That is where we're hosting the Midwest Solar Expo. So if from time to time, audience, you hear me refer to the rest of those who are watching offline, or rather online, but outside of the Virbela world, don't be caught off guard or surprised. Stoked to have a chance each day. We did a pre-show yesterday, but today and tomorrow we'll be doing this morning show to give you a bit of an orientation on what the conference is all about and what to expect inside of this virtual world. Today, Brian and Rex and I are also going to go into a bit of what's happening in the industry in the post-COVID world. What could we expect? Some of the highlights of the show are also really interesting. I couldn't figure out, for whatever reason, how to put the agenda up onto the screen behind me here, but I will nonetheless go through a few of those with you all. So what are the highlights of today that folks should be paying attention to? Rex?
Yeah, so definitely check out, the exhibition. So once that opens, the Solve Expo Hall, which of course, check out solar.com. We have a booth there. And, for those of you that have played around with the virtual conference, you can walk anywhere you want. If you want to get a little exercise, you can also teleport. Under your name at the top left, you'll see that button Go To, and you can just teleport to any auditorium or to the expo hall.
Your chance to practice Captain Spock.
There you go. And then anytime you see dotted blue lines, that will denote a private area. So your conversation will be private. You can lock the room, have any conversations that you want there.
All right. Everyone, take a moment, and just so we can practice a little more, Mr. Jake Rosemarin, Director of Midwest Solar Expo, just entered the room. I want to give him a round of applause. For those who are trying to figure out how all these things work, F1 is a wave. There we go. F4 is applause. That, at least on the Mac. Jake, good to see you here, man. Thanks for having us on the show. Thanks for helping us with this split space.
Thanks for the Rockin' Daily Show.
Absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and, well, if you guys get too rowdy, we'll have to mute the audience just so that it doesn't create noise over the show for those that we're broadcasting out to. But for the meantime, just as a reminder, you can post any questions that you have into the public chat, just like Sean O'Brien has done here. So what's happening with the show? The show is structured in keynotes, and what we call Fast Talks. Brian will talk about Fast Talks in a minute. The first keynote this morning is my friend and yours, Mr. Peter Kelly Detweiler from Northbridge Energy Partners. He's going to be following immediately after this morning show in the Radiant REIT Auditorium. If you haven't figured out where the Radiant REIT Auditorium is, again, you can go to that go-to function. Here, I'm going to quickly mute. There we go. You can hit that go-to function on the top left, and that will show you where each and every one of these rooms is. In fact, it'll take you to Solar Beach or to the soccer field. Feel free to spend some time navigating around the site and then quickly run over to the Radiant REIT Auditorium to catch PKD's keynote this morning on the path to decarbonization. Beyond the grid, what other sectors of the economy must be decarbonized, and what's the role of solar in that process? PKD will also be doing a number of different interviews throughout the day and throughout today and tomorrow. Notably, later today or later this morning, he's going to be interviewing Minnesota SEIA's Executive Director, David Schaefer, in that same auditorium. Brian, what are these Fast Talks all about?
Yeah, so Nico, Fast Talk sessions will be running concurrently throughout the show, featuring industry practitioners giving expert advice on how to grow your professional career and business interests. And Nico, I'm going to admit this is my first virtual conference, so I'm trying to make this as realistic as possible. So I'll be listening to these Fast Talk sessions while I enjoy very stale coffee and crusty danishes that we all would miss from the real experience.
This is the first time I put a suit on in 2 years, so I did it just for you guys.
I love it, Rex. You're looking very fabulous, and I'm also enjoying all of the different color coordinating outfits. Those who've chosen to it's so funny, inside the virtual world, it seems that folks still want to represent who they actually look like in the real world. Of course, I do typically wear brightly colored pants, and Eric Posse wears paisley colored shirts and flip-flops. So it's a very accurate representation of how we all are experiencing this virtual world. Speaking of experience, we've got some panel sessions taking place throughout the day, as you might expect from any conference, including yours truly hosting a session at 11 o'clock on critical elements of asset management. The Midwest is itself a unique region. And so what you'll see at the expo and throughout the conference sessions is a mix of things that are happening specific to the Midwest Solar Expo, which itself in the last 7 years has been the leading source of information for those who want to really understand the market. But also, given that we're in a virtual world and in a pandemic era, what we hope to be very, very soon post-pandemic, we are touching on elements of the world around us, the impact that our industry is feeling, how we're growing, where are the needs, where are the gaps, et cetera.
Yep, and then we'll take a little networking break right after that, Nico, from 12 to 12:30, and then 12:30 to 1 back at the Solve Expo Hall and the networking lounge.
Yeah, I expect that we'll see a lot of networking around. You know, what's really interesting, I was talking to the guys from Solar Coaster yesterday. Shout out to Jason and Josh. They'll be the ones walking around campus in shorts and flip-flops, of course, from Hawaii. And they were telling me they went out for a boat ride with the Canadian Solar guys. So unlike most conferences, you do have an opportunity here to just lounge, be casual, go down to Solar Beach and hang out. Of course, we've got set networking areas and networking breaks throughout the day. But we also have, as I mentioned before, a keynote in the morning and a keynote midday. I'm sure that many of you are going to be checking out the keynote by Mr. Dan Sugar, the CEO of Next Tracker. That'll be at 12:30 in the Radiant REIT Auditorium, talking about PV trends and technologies for robust solar in the Midwest region.
And all afternoon, Nico, there'll be more Fast Talks on the Smart Grid Forum in the Radiant REIT Auditorium. And I personally will try and ask Dan Sugar if he'll give me a Corona cut after his keynote.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, the day is going to be over around 3:45 this afternoon Central Time. But of course, you're welcome to hang out around and network, as we talked about, lounge on the beach, go for a boat ride, play a game of soccer. And just a quick reminder as well, if you're concerned about how this virtual world is going to set you up for networking or conversation, and perhaps this is your first time coming into Virbela, just another note that the blue dotted areas, which you'll find off of Solar Beach, in rooms outside the soccer field, inside the Solve Expo Hall, they all are private conversation areas. So if you slip into one of those private conversation areas, you can have the semblance of a private conversation. Can't guarantee that someone isn't behind a terminal in Beijing courting the whole thing, but we hope that you have a sense that you can slip away, have a private conversation, and certainly to the extent that you're in the expo hall and an exhibitor has a meeting room, those meeting rooms are able to be locked, so you can go in, lock those rooms, and have a virtual private meeting with the folks that are there. Well, Brian and Rex, we've been having a discussion offline that I want to have here with the audience at Midwest Solar Expo around the state of the solar market post COVID-19. Just as a reminder for everyone, if you do have questions that you want to pose, you can jump into the public chat there. You'll see where Jake Rosemarin just said the agenda is on the top left, so you can scroll. I could probably scroll through that if I can figure out how to do that. But we are entering into a strange and new experience, not just here in Verbella in this virtual world, but as well in the real world when we all emerge from this lockdown. I want to take a moment here with two folks that represent broad swaths of our industry. LG, obviously a world-renowned manufacturer, Solar.com, one of the leading platforms in the US to help folks navigate getting solar to their customers. Brian, as a leading manufacturer, I know that you guys have broad visibility into how the industry at large is reacting to the pandemic crisis. Most states qualify solar storage as essential business, solar and storage, excuse me, as essential business these days, but the experience varies widely depending on where you sit in the value chain. I'd be curious to hear from your vantage point, what's been your experience and what do you anticipate to be the shape of recovery efforts in the coming months?
Yeah, Nico, it's a fascinating question and one that the answer changes to seemingly on a weekly basis. I've been in the solar industry for about 15 years, and I thought I was immune to these kind of wild gyrations that we've seen as an industry. And then 2020 happened, the pandemic happened, and if you think back to the back half of March, it's been incredible watching how much the market contracted so suddenly, and then what's happened since then. And what we've seen is, as I talk to partners across the country, every market is reacting different, whether it's New York or parts of California that were completely shut down for several weeks, to areas in the southeast and the southwest that really continued as business as usual. What I've seen though is a general trend up. LG partners are reporting sales are growing and increasing by about 10 to 15% week over week. This is absolutely reinforced by what Sonova, Enphase, Sunrun, and others have mentioned during their earnings calls, and then also kind of reinforced by the data published by Wood Mackenzie and Ohm. So what's happened here is we have what LG has dubbed this reasonable response spectrum. Some people have went into a fetal crouch, tried to protect their businesses, just make payroll, desperately trying to get the triple P loan, where others leaned in and they saw this as an opportunity to invest in their businesses, really re-examine what works and what doesn't work. And the reality is there's really no perfect solution for this because we're in uncharted territory. But at the end of the day, we've seen our partners kind of take restock of their business. I have a genuine, sincere hope that many will emerge stronger. And what it's forced everyone to do is re-examine their business and their supply chain. What's working, what isn't, what's bankable. And if nothing else, this disruption is forcing innovation. And my hope is that some of it will be long-term net positive for the industry.
Yeah, it's a fascinating look from above at how partners around the industry are reacting. Now, another element is direct to consumer. Rex, I know that Solar.com is very end customer focused. What can you tell us about how customers are reacting during the crisis? What insights have we gleaned over the past 2 to 3 months that might foreshadow our future expectations? And also, what did Solar.com in particular do from the beginning to monitor the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually did something pretty creative. So as soon as COVID hit, Solar.com began essentially collecting data on the customer response to COVID. So we have a team of energy advisors, and after every interaction they had with a customer, they would submit a form. And it would basically help us track this customer's mindset in terms of, where they were at in terms of purchasing solar due to COVID. So a couple of things we did notice right when it hit, customers that were in the process of buying solar we saw a high percentage of them just completely halt their decisions. There's just so much uncertainty with the market, folks worried about keeping their jobs. So we did see, probably for a 2 to 3 week period, just a complete stall with customers that were already in the pipeline. We also, because of, with COVID and everything like this, they were uncomfortable having, installers on their property. So many of those customers just completely halted their decisions for, like I said, 2 to 3 weeks. We did see, customers that engaged with us after COVID hit. With those customers, they moved forward very smoothly. I mean, they contacted, solar.com. They were looking into solar, knowing full well kind of what the environment was. And a lot of these consumers, they were, the driving factor was more energy independence. And so we did see still interest from customers wanting to go solar at the spark of COVID. We did see a lot more customers wanting to go with financing transactions as opposed to, a cash purchase. It's obviously a tough thing to invest when you're a little bit uncertain with the market. Yes. Right now, I mean, now that we're 2 to 3 months, it's all bit of a blur right now, but 2 to 3 months in, we're seeing the buying decisions seemingly back to normal at this stage.
It is it's an interesting time, especially from the buying perspective of customers, as well as, us in the industry who are trying to suss out what our message should be. How do we pivot our communication? Are we aligned with the way consumers are feeling and their anxieties? I'm curious how each of the businesses are modifying their approach, modifying their messaging. Brian, as a major supplier of technology, both on the hardware side and increasingly in controls, where have LG's efforts been focused?
Yeah, so it was interesting listening to what Rex described from a direct-to-consumer experience over the last 12 weeks. We certainly saw the trailing end of that as we talked to our installation partners. And, I think everyone revised their business plans, beginning of April, end of March. And top down, LG's executive management team said, business plan is out the door. Focus on being the best partner as possible to your customers and your installers, help them emerge healthier. And so that's manifested itself through Q2 in very subtle ways. We provided free face masks to LG partners in the broader industry. I think there was 50,000 that we provided to solar professionals. We did a consumer rebate to spur people to sign contracts in Q2. We listened to what we were hearing, and to Rex's point, the consumer purchase decision was stalled. So we wanted to give people a reason to sign that contract as quickly as possible to get our installers back on the roof. Just last week, we announced a partnership with Open Solar to provide free access to the entire industry to a new proposal platform. And probably the biggest thing is we launched what we call the Solar Concierge platform. Something that's frustrated probably everybody in the residential solar space is the customer acquisition cost. And LG probably has the best opportunity to reduce that given our high consumer resonance brand. And so we're trying to leverage how people view LG, positively from a consumer perspective, and bring them through a consultative solar purchase journey that actually enhances the value for our partners as opposed to competing with them for the same customer base. And we also shouldn't ignore what's being done on the policy front, right? There's a lack of tax equity in the market right now. So we're putting our full policy efforts behind supporting a direct pay conversion. And also, more subtly, the need for remote permitting. I think the crisis has really amplified this idea that the old way of inspections and permitting slow the process down, create friction. And as an industry, this is a way to take cost out, and this is breeding innovation, and we are fully supporting those efforts.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We had Lynch, now I'm blanking, Birchie. I don't know why I was thinking Lynch and Birch, but we had Birchie on our SunCast Summit back in April talking about the sort of the next level of open access for the industry, Open Solar being one of those partnerships. I love what you guys are doing with the Solar Concierge as well as a way to help your partners downfield by opening up doors they may not otherwise have access to leads and access to information that helps them get their customers through the buying decision process. You're absolutely right. The psychology of what's happening with the consumer post-COVID is something that is fascinating. We'll be for sure covering and keeping a watch on this Harris poll that you guys are referring to and working on. Rex, to that end, I wonder what innovations are you all seeing with regard to the sales process, modifications? What has surfaced to accommodate the way that we sell? I mean, notably from Sunrun on down, everyone had to switch to online sales. I feel that a lot of folks were in some way ready for that online sales process, but I'm curious what your experience has been since you guys have hundreds of installer partners in the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to reiterate Brian's point there with, during this whole pandemic, the permitting, I can't stress enough how important it's going to be to switch to online permitting. I mean, we had markets where, installers would have been able to continue these installations, get up on the roof, but we couldn't get permits. And I want to give a shout out to CalSA in California, who really did a tremendous job kind of crowdsourcing information and encouraging these AHJs to switch to online permits. I think that's going to be a huge benefit moving forward, and really hope that these AHJs adopt these online policies just to help expedite the installation process. In terms of sales, yes, we are seeing a tremendous shift towards online sales. In Solar.com, we were very fortunate. We've always been 100% online. We've been doing this for 5 years now, so we were significantly less affected by COVID than a lot of installers and organizations who heavily rely on door-to-door sales. I mean, folks did not want you in their home, so we did see a huge spike in installer applications that they wanted to join Solar.com to supplement the sales loss that they were experiencing with Solar.com customers. And we still see, we've seen this trend, more and more consumers buying solar online. And when we first started, people thought we were crazy, and there's no way a customer is going to sign a contract for a $30,000 solar system without meeting you. So it was, kind of a slow to begin with, but now we're seeing a lot of traction with online sales. We're seeing manufacturers get involved, installers are switching their sales to online, utilities are wanting to have marketplaces on their websites to promote solar. So this is really the direction it was headed, and I think with COVID it's really just expedited this transition. And I think it would be a good change if this is more permanent. I mean, selling solar online is just such a more efficient way to utilize your sales team. And if you're doing the door-to-door sales, you can maybe squeeze in 2 to 3 appointment sets in one day. You're driving all across town. Whereas if you're online, you can squeeze in 10 to 15 online web conferences that is going to just further increase the adoption of clean technologies, which is what we're all shooting to do. So again, I think solar sales shifting online, we're already headed in that direction, and COVID has just completely expedited this transition.
Yeah, I'm curious, what do you all in the audience sense about this? Obviously, we aren't going to be able to all speak at once, but by raise of hands, if it's been a struggle for your company to go online, raise your hands. If you don't know how to do that, there's a function under if you go to your name, and you can raise hand. Although, yeah, there it is. It's one of the very first. Unfortunately, there's not a hotkey for that, as you've been watching us sort of navigate around the screen here. So it looks like either you guys haven't figured out how to raise your hand, or nobody's having issues with taking their business online. There you go, Rich. I'll be curious to hear what conversation is now that for the first time since the pandemic, many of us are able to get back together. The entire reason why we did our SunCast Summit back in April was because there just weren't ways for us, those of us who in fact are in many ways are conference junkies, to get together and collaborate and have conversations. Of course, we've all been now 3 months doing Zoom calls. I am, for one, welcoming the fresh idea that we could in some way inhabit the same space. And here we are. We're here at the Midwest Solar Expo, wrapping what has been our first morning show. I'm happy to have my friends Brian Lynch and Rex Kehoe here on the stage from LG and Solar.com. more than that, grateful that you all have joined us out in the audience. Thank you so much for coming to spend time with us. And I want to remind you that you can not only access the agenda online, but if you download I think it's Bizaba, there's an app on the website that will tell you what the agenda is. Of course, we'll all be online, offline, throughout in meetings on and off today. But I would encourage you to check back as we have an exciting lineup, and not the least of which is the keynote that begins in 5 minutes over in the Radiant REIT Auditorium by Peter Kelly Detweiler. If you haven't been watching Peter Kelly Detweiler, also known as PKD, he's been doing a lot of video uploads to LinkedIn, similar to the stuff that we've been doing for SunCast Media. Highly engaging thinker and thought leader who is going to be talking about the decarbonization of our industry and where does it go from here? What other segments is it going to touch on? Josh and Rex, thank you for co-hosting the show with me this morning. And we'll remind you all that we'll be right here tomorrow morning with my friend Eric Posse sitting right there in the front row. We'll be talking more about what's happening in the industry. And Eric and his company IPS here in the Midwest have been leaders in the industry. We'll get a frontline voice on what is new, what's up in the Midwest region. So I encourage you to come back here. For now, thanks so much for being here with us. Appreciate your time and your attention. Thank you, Brian and Rex.
Thank you, Nico. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
And we'll see you back here tomorrow morning, guys. All right, we got a few claps there. Let's see. I'm going to unmute the audience. There we go. Thanks, all. Appreciate you guys. We were broadcasting this over on LinkedIn, so appreciate it. I know Jake and the Midwest Solar team would appreciate it if you guys would share on LinkedIn that you guys are attending this conference. It's quite an experience, and looking forward to hearing how folks are leaning into it. Good morning, Kai. Morning. All righty. Actually,